歡迎大家嚟到2021
Welcome to this press briefing on the COVID-19 vaccination program. Let me introduce the three speakers to you. Mr. Patrick Nip, Secretary for the Civil Service, Professor Sophia Chen, Secretary for Food and Health, and Dr. Constance Chen, Director of Health. Mr. Nip will first say a few words. Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the media and the public. In response to the vaccine suppliers' request to play safe, we suspended the BioNTech vaccination program on the 24th of March as a preventive measure, while we wait for the vaccine supplier to conduct an investigation into the Vowel cap defects incident. The vaccine supplier has submitted an interim investigation report to the Department of Health. The report shows that there is no quality and safety issue in relation to the BioNTech vaccine. Professor Chen will say a few words on that later. Now, as there is no quality and safety issue regarding the BioNTech vaccine, a new batch of 300,000 doses of BioNTech vaccine is expected to arrive at Hong Kong tomorrow. So the government has decided to resume BioNTech vaccination from the 5th of April next Monday. The suspension lasted from the 24th of March to the 4th of April, 12 days in total. Those who have been affected, including those who have made appointments to receive the first or the second dose of the BioNTech, amounted to 180,000 citizens or so. About 30% of 30,000 of them have made appointments for the second dose, and they need to receive the second dose as soon as possible so that the vaccine will achieve the intended protection. Here I would like to explain the arrangement on the resumption of the vaccination program, especially the special appointment arrangement for the two affected groups. First, as I mentioned earlier, we will resume the BioNTech vaccination from the 5th of April. For those who've made appointment to receive the BioNTech vaccine on or after the 5th of April, they could still proceed to the selected vaccination center to receive the vaccine in accordance with their original appointment. There is no need for them to make a new appointment. Secondly, for residents who have made appointments to receive the second dose of the BioNTech vaccine on or before the 4th of April, the administration will set aside a time slot in one of the days between the 5th and the 10th of April in our appointment system, so they could receive their second dose of vaccine as soon as possible. Thirdly, for those who've made appointments to receive the first dose of BioNTech between the 24th of March and the 4th of April, again the government will arrange or make a new appointment for them. For these two groups of people, they will be receiving the appointment details via SMS starting from tomorrow, the 2nd of April. Now, if residents are not available on the slot that we've reserved for them, then starting from the 3rd of April at 9 a.m. we will again be opening up the appointment system online for BioNTech vaccination. So in that appointment system, they could change their appointment, but of course they must first cancel the appointment we've made for them. We expect that at the initial stage of the resumption of BioNTech vaccination, many will be making appointments. So if residents change their appointment, they may not be able to get an early appointment, and there may be delay in the vaccination. So I would like to appeal to those who've been made appointment by the government to keep the appointment as far as possible so they could receive their second dose of the BioNTech vaccine as soon as possible. Now here I must stress that every recipient of vaccine must receive 2 doses of the same vaccine. and then they must take the second dose on the by keeping the appointment. Otherwise, the first dose will become ineffective. So we want to enhance public confidence in the vaccination program, and we also enhance transparency. So we are going to upload data on the program, such as the number of doses given, number of people who have received vaccines, their age and gender, and so on. So people will get to know more about the vaccination program. So starting from the 5th of April, that means there will again be 2 types of vaccines available. There are 21. There will be 21 community vaccination centers, and these include the center at the Queen Elizabeth Stadium in Wan Chai. There's also a center in Ho Man Tin. It will be in operation again from the 5th of April. So there are 2 centers for BioNTech vaccination. As for CoronaVac vaccines, there are 8 centers for vaccination, and also you could take the vaccine at private clinics. Now this is the 35th day of the vaccination program. So far we have administered about 505,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Of those, 461,000 have received their first dose, which is about 7% of the population aged 16 or above. Now this is still a long way from our target of achieving herd immunity. So therefore I would like to appeal to the public again to take the vaccine. Now the epidemic won't go away by itself. We need to do our part. It's for us, to the good of ourselves, our family, our friends in Hong Kong. So please take the vaccine as soon as possible. I believe Hong Kong people have enough wisdom and resolve. We will work together to fight the virus so we could go back to life as usual. Thank you. Next, Dr. Constance Chan, please. Good afternoon. I'd like to report the interim investigation report of Fosun. On the 24th of April, the Department of Health received a written notification from Fosun that for batch number 102, defects have been found on the viral caps of the BioNTech vaccine. So they have asked that we refrain from using this batch, and to play safe, there's another batch 210104 that should also not be used for the time being. Now, in the past few days, we've had meetings and discussions with Fosun, and today we've received notification in writing that the BioNTech has done a root cause analysis. And they found that the root cause of the valve cap defect has to do with the trimming of the metal cap, and the defect is because of the need to keep the vaccine under minus 70 degrees Celsius. Now, for each vial cap, there is first a plastic plug, and outside there is a metal ring in extremely low temperatures. You know, the BioNTech vaccine must be stored in a temperature of minus 70 degrees Celsius. So under this extremely low temperature, the plastic stopper flexibility was affected. So the metal ring could not be fixed tightly on the cap. So that's why the cap is not tight, and so air could seep into the file. And then when the file is is thawed, and it will be exposed to a temperature of 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. And under this temperature, the flexibility of the stopper is restored, so the cap is again airtight. And then there is already gas inside the vial, so that's why the pressure inside the vial becomes abnormal. So that's why there is leakage, or the cap becomes loose. Now, there is a packaging plant responsible for supply vaccine to Hong Kong. So after the incident, BioNTech has carried out some tests and experiments at the plant. They have collected vials from batches 102 and 104, and they found that for some of the vials, this was detected. But then at another plant, producing another batch of the vaccine, they have done repeated tests, and they did not spot the same problem. And then for the whole chain from production to delivery to Hong Kong and the store and the go down, the BioNTech has actually checked the entire process, and they have not spotted any irregularities in the handling of the vaccine. So based on this finding, the BioNTech states that because of detailed data analysis and random checking, there is no evidence to show that 210 batches number 210-102 and 210-104 have any safety or quality issues. Now, I said that there is some problem with the air tightness of the cap, but because the vaccine is stored at ultra low temperature, so the risk of contamination by bacteria is very low. For these two batches of vaccine, the Department of Health actually carried out tests for any contamination, and for both bacteria and microorganisms, and we found no problems. We've asked them whether the efficacy of the vaccine will be affected. According to BioNTech, so in relation to the messenger RNA, mRNA, and lipid nanoparticles, their integrity would not be affected. So on the basis of this finding, the BioNTech believes that the efficacy of the vaccine has not been affected. So for members of the public who have taken the BioNTech vaccine need not be worried. Now, the German manufacturers told us they would need time to complete the final report. To play safe for batch number 210102 and 210104, we will have to wait for the manufacturer to complete this final report before they will inform us how they will handle these two batches. For the time being, these two batches will not be used. Now, we want to resume the vaccine exchange program as soon as possible. So a new batch of 300 doses of BioNTech vaccine is expected to arrive at Hong Kong tomorrow. For this particular batch, the BioNTech will get it from a different plant for for its production and packaging, so you can rest assured. And in Germany, there's another packaging plant, Baxter. They have done repeated tests on over 15,000 vials to check their air tightness, and they have not found any problems. So for this new batch of Baxter packaged BioNTech vaccine, when it arrives in Hong Kong, we will also step up random checking to ensure that the vaccine, the packaging is safe. And then we will be providing the relevant information to our staff and we'll ask them to monitor the situation before they use the vaccine, and if there are any problems they must report them to us at the first instance. So this is the interim investigation report received from BioNTech today. Thank you.
Professor Chen, members of the media and Hong Kong people, for the Hong Kong SAR government, we have always attached a lot of importance to the efficiency and safety of the COVID-19 vaccines. We also have a system to monitor the whole process of vaccination. So we have adopted a very strict mechanism, and the Department of Health has always closely monitored the adverse events following immunization of COVID-19 vaccines. We have taken reference from the WHO, and we have announced our regular surveillance, and we are now also taking active surveillance. And when it comes to regular surveillance, the Department of Health has established a pharmacovigilance system for AEFIs. We encourage the healthcare staff and pharmacists to report on AEFIs, and we collect the relevant information. When it comes to active surveillance, the Department of Health is also cooperating with the University of Hong Kong to actively monitor the adverse events of special interest. But I would like to reiterate that for these two approved vaccines in Hong Kong, they are safe, efficient, and their qualities can be assured. And when we look at the global situation, the pandemic is still very serious, and the vaccination programs in different countries have already been rolled out. Well, this will bring about a new opportunity for adjusting our anti-epidemic policies. Over 560 million doses have been administered globally. On average, 7.4 doses have been administered per 100 person. And we are now rolling out the vaccination scheme rapidly. By receiving the vaccinations, it doesn't only protect yourself, you can also protect your families and friends. And if most of us are vaccinated, then we can achieve herd immunity, and Hong Kong can be freed from the pandemic. Now, in order to encourage more people to get vaccinated, for those who have completed the vaccination programs, that is after they've taken their second dose and after 14 days, well, these people will be taken into account when we consider our next round of anti-epidemic policies. Now, I must stress that for the two types of COVID-19 vaccines that have been approved in Hong Kong, they are safe, efficient, and their quality are assured. Now, by receiving the vaccinations, you can protect yourself, you can protect your friends and families, and you can also protect the whole community. So when it comes to epidemic control and for the continuous operation of our public healthcare systems, these are really good things. So we hope that our normal lives and economy can be resumed soon. I hope that you can protect yourself and your families, and we should all receive vaccination.
The floor is now open to questions. The lady in the blue windbreaker. I'm from Ming Pao. Now, for subsequent batches, if they use the same stopper and they're still to be stored in minus 70 degrees Celsius, then how can you ensure that this will not happen again? Is there a need to ask the manufacturer to use a different type of plastic or material? And what about the subsequent batches? How are you going to step up random checking to make sure that there won't be the same problem? And for this batches 102 and 104, how are you going to deal with them? Will you be administering the vaccine again? And when do you expect to clear the backlog? Would it be by the 14th of April? Second question. There is a record low on the number of people receiving the coronavac vaccine. It's dropped below 5,000 per day now. So how are you going to boost the vaccination rate so we could achieve the 70% target? And when are you going to open up the vaccination program to those below the age of 30 soon? Another question is for Professor Sylvia Chen. Now, there's still a risk of outbreak at the fitness centers. We've checked with the Home Affairs Bureau and the Food and Health Bureau. The Food and Health Bureau say that they're not responsible for checking the condition of fitness centers, and then Home Affairs Department say they will only handle fitness centers with with license. So who's actually responsible? Which department is responsible for monitoring fitness centers? Do you need to find a department to look after the fitness centers? Otherwise, who will be held responsible if there are problems again? Now, on your first question, the Director of Health has just explained to you the written interim investigation findings from BioNTech. Tomorrow, a new batch of about 300,000 doses of BioNTech vaccine would arrive at Hong Kong. Now, this batch is produced and packaged at a different plant. Now, of course, they have noted the problem with the stopper. They have done repeated tests, and they have made sure that the similar problem has not recurred. They've also done random checking of the product. And then when the vaccine arrives at Hong Kong, the Department of Health will, in accordance with its established mechanism, carry out tests and checks. For the problem detected with batches 102 and 104, it should not recur again. That's the first point. Second point, for the two batches of vaccine, BioNTech has said that it would still need some time to complete the entire investigation. So before there is the final investigation report for these two batches of vaccine, they will still be kept in storage and we won't use them for now. A third point, starting from next Monday, the 5th of April, we're going to resume BioNTech vaccination, because the investigation findings and data show that there is no safety risk. And also there's a new batch of vaccine coming from a different plant. So we are going to resume the vaccination program. Now, we suspended the BioNTech vaccination program, and some who have made appointments were affected, especially for those who are due for the second dose. So we will set aside slots for them between the 5th and the 10th of April for them to receive their second dose of the BioNTech vaccine. Now, what we're doing is that we are just giving available slots to this group of residents who are due for their second dose of vaccine first. It's hoped that then they could receive the second dose as soon as possible. And also, for the vaccination centers, we're going to start two more centers. One will be at the Queen Elizabeth Stadium in Wan Chai. The other one will be in Ho Man Tin. These are two new centers for vaccination. For the Hospital Authorities Center, they have already started receiving appointments. Now, let's say if you have made appointments at the Dr. Sen Yat-sen Memorial Stadium, you will be reassigned to the Queen Elizabeth Stadium Center in Wan Chai. And also say if you've made an appointment originally somewhere in Kowloon, you will be given a slot in Ho Man Tin. So that's what we are trying to do, and the aim is to arrange for residents who are due for their second dose of the vaccine to receive it as soon as possible. So that's the arrangement. On the vaccination figures, now so about 7% of those of the population aged 16 or above has received the first dose of vaccine. In the past week or so, there's only one type of vaccine available. So that's why, of course, fewer people would have taken the vaccine. But we'd like to appeal to the public to get vaccinated as soon as possible. Now, you have to take 2 doses of vaccine and wait another 14 days before the intended protection kicks in. And as the Professor Chen pointed out, now after enough people have taken the vaccine, there will be after people take the vaccines, the 2 doses vaccine, then we will consider adjusting our policy. So it's important for us to take the vaccine is to protect ourselves and others, and then we will be monitoring the situation closely, and we'll see whether there is need to open up the vaccination program to those below the age of 30. Well, actually, there is quite a large group of eligible residents, so we will wait for the resumption of the BioNTech vaccination and observe the situation a bit before we decide on other steps.
As for the daily vaccination situation, just now Mr. Nip has given you some information. Now we will be resuming the vaccination of the BioNTech vaccine soon. So we believe that the number of people taking jabs will increase. But when we look at the overall vaccination situation, on one hand, some members of the public may still adopt a wait-and-see attitude, and for some other Hong Kong people, I believe that they really want to take the jab as soon as possible. So for the government's responsibility, when it comes to the procurement and provision of quality vaccines, it is indeed the government's responsibility. Now, when it comes to the number of people that have registered for the jab, the number is 5. We have 5 million people who are eligible for the vaccination program. And we hope that for those who have taken the jab, that is 2 doses, and 14 days after taking the second dose, then for this batch of people, we will take them into consideration when we consider our future epidemic measures. For example, at our restaurants, the staff have to be tested on a regular basis. That is, they have to be tested every 14 days. But if they've been vaccinated, then they do not have to take a test every 14 days. So I believe that people are now gradually getting vaccinated. So we will still have to wait a bit. So the vaccination program has started for some time, and I believe more people will be taking the jabs, and I believe there will be more incentives for people to get vaccinated. Now let me talk about the fitness center issue. Under Cap 599F, it is a scheduled premises. Now, of course, some of them are still closed, but some of them are allowed to be opened on certain conditions. But as to whether they comply with all these conditions, we will be keeping an eye on them. Of course, different premises are under the authority of different bureaus. So we will work in accordance with the relevant piece of legislation, and we will be giving guidelines to such premises. And when it comes to law enforcement, different public officers will be responsible for different premises. So if enforcement actions have to be taken, our colleagues will do that. Well, there may be some interdepartmental operations. Now we have an action group, and our chief secretary is heading that team. So under Cap 599F, there are different regulations and requirements, and we will continue to work accordingly. Next question, the lady in brown. I'm from Oriental Daily. Well, how long will the investigation last? Now we will have a new batch of 300,000 doses. So can these doses last until the investigation is done and the old batch can be used? Now for the 2 old batches, if there are no quality problems, then will they be used for vaccination again? So how can you convince the people that these batches are safe? And also I would like to ask about the frozen or the cold storage in Kwaichong. Is it enough for holding such vaccines? And also I would like to know about the progress of opening our border. And when it comes to the BioNTech vaccines, well, we'll have a new batch of 300,000 doses, and they will be arriving in Hong Kong tomorrow. So we will continue to talk to the manufacturer and the provider of the vaccines. They told us clearly that they will ship the vaccines to us if we require them. So if it's necessary, we will continue to get new supply. As for the present 2 batches, how are we going to handle them? Well, we have to look at the pharmaceutical company's decision. Now, they would have to complete the investigation, and then they will explain to us clearly, and then we will work accordingly. Thirdly, when it comes to the storage of such vaccines, in particular, we have to store them under minus 70 degrees Celsius. We have enough space for storing them. That is for storing the present 2 batches and a new batch. And we will continue to monitor the situation, and we will talk to the provider as well as the storage operator. We want to ensure that all the vaccines would be stored at the required temperature of minus 70 degrees Celsius. As for opening the borders, maybe Professor Chen can answer that question. Yes, if you have taken the jabs, you will be able to protect yourself, your family, and the community. And of course, I believe that members of the public hope to see that the borders are open again. When it comes to opening the border with Hong Kong and the mainland, we have a joint mechanism with them, and we have been talking to them all the time. Well, the most important thing is that we keep the epidemic under control. So we are trying our best to keep it under control. Now, the epidemic has eased a bit, but we still have to be vigilant. Now, we do not want the disease to spread again. This is very important. So when it comes to compulsory testing and our tracing, etc., we have never let down our guard because we want the epidemic to ease further so that we will be able to open our borders again. Of course, vaccination would help. But this is not about a person personally. We have to look at the overall situation. Now, how many people in the community have been vaccinated? And what's the overall rate of vaccination? Well, these are things that we need to take into consideration when it comes to opening the border. As for vaccine passport, or vaccination passport, if you've been vaccinated, can that be regarded as having a vaccination passport that you can go abroad? Now, first of all, you need to prove that you have taken the jab. Now, the government already has an app, I Am Smart. Now, if a person has been vaccinated and if he's downloaded this app, then this is already a proof. This can be considered an electronic vaccination proof. Of course, you also get a paper proof. So if a certain percentage of our population have been vaccinated, then this app can act as a proof that you have been vaccinated. Now, we already have such an app. I have seen that some other countries have just started to do this, but Hong Kong has already created such an app. And for the next step, we will have to look at other places' situations. Well, do they accept our certifications? And other than vaccination, the control of the epidemic is also very important. So I would like to call on the public to be vigilant, in particular during the Easter holidays. I hope you can still keep your social distancing and you can pay attention to hygiene. Now you have to keep on doing all these so that we can control Hong Kong's epidemic situations. Okay, the next reporter, please.
Thank you, Richard from RTHK. From day one, the government has said there's no reason to suggest there's any safety or quality issues with the vaccine. So why is it taking 12 days to restart this program? Why do the risks outweigh the benefits in this case? Did you ever consider overruling the manufacturer and the agent and restarting the program on public health grounds? And secondly, if Hong Kong needs to suspend a vaccination once more, say you find more packaging defects, non-safety issues, are there any contingency plans in place now so that we won't need to halt the entire vaccination program for longer than a week once again?
Okay. Yeah.
We have all along taken report of abnormalities related to vaccinations very seriously. So whenever we receive reports from the frontline healthcare providers, we will report it through the local agent to the manufacturer, and in this case, Germany, BioNTech. The company also took the matter very seriously, and I think it's a very responsible attitude to make sure the investigation reviewed and confirmed no safety or quality issues before the vaccine is administered. So in this case, the company have advised to withhold the vaccination with the batch ending 102 and as a precautionary measure, and also withhold the use of batch 104. And upon further investigation, samples being detected in Hong Kong were sent back to Germany for investigation, and they have done numerous tests and experiments on the vials concerned. And they also did tests in another finish and fill plant operated by Baxter. And in the process, they found out that in the vials packed at the site which provided batch 102 and 104, there were issues related to the so-called crimping process. Crimping is the process by which pressure is applied to the aluminum ring which fixed the rubber stopper at the top of the valve. And we received report that it is related to the process of crimping, and at the same time, the condition of ultra low temperature of minus 70 degrees. So that is why BioNTech now decided to send the new vials from Baxter, which has undergone repeated experiment and investigation, and that would exclude further occurrence of such event. On the question why we did not overrule the manufacturer's recommendation, I think it would not be correct to overrule the manufacturer's recommendation, because in any case, it is the manufacturer who possesses the in-depth knowledge on the manufacturing process. And we would rely on the manufacturer to conduct a thorough investigation and submit the full report to us. And upon scrutiny of the complete investigation report, we will decide what to do. So I think it is important that it is a prudent approach to follow the manufacturer's recommendation to suspend the use of the concerned batch.
好，下一條。
Maybe I'll just have a final word for Richard. I think the most important thing, as the Director of Health has said, is safety. So the important thing is we have to have a robust mechanism to identify these problems. And then when these problems are identified, like this time, that it is us that have identified all these packaging problems and report to the manufacturer. And then we obviously would rely on the manufacturer to do the investigation together. Obviously, we are working very closely with them. But without a robust system, I think this is most important, and we'll continue to monitor the situation.
好，下一位請。
As regards your second questions concerning the supply of vaccine, we have purchased two types of vaccines, and with an agreement to supply a total of 15 million doses, sufficient to cover the whole population. So, I mean, that's the assurance. So we will continue to monitor the situation, ensuring that we have a sufficient supply of vaccines. And so with that, and also with the choice of vaccines, that's why we urge the public to to take these opportunities to have early vaccination.
嗰邊最尾嗰行第二位。
The last row, please. I'm from Now TV. First, there is this packaging problem with the manufacturer. So have you talked to the manufacturer? What sort of consequences would have to be shouldered by the manufacturer under the contract? And then secondly, on appointments. Now you've quoted example. Let's say some may have already made an appointment to go to the Dr. Sen Yat-sen Memorial Park, and now they will be moved to a different center. Maybe some residents would choose to cancel this appointment altogether and make a new appointment because they have been moved to a different center. So do you expect many to make new appointments? And for appointments made before the 4th of April, and in between the 5th and 10th of April, you have set aside a slot for them to, or set aside a day for them to take the vaccine. So what do you mean by a day? Does it mean that you have many time slots in a day for them to choose? And another question is about BioNTech vaccine. Now the manufacturer has done some studies that is 100% safe and effective for those aged between 12 and 15 to receive the vaccine. So do you have plans to open up the vaccination program to say students? Now, I'll take your question on the resumption of the BioNTech vaccination program, and then my colleagues will take your other questions. First, we have suspended the BioNTech vaccination program, but then we would like to resume the program as soon as possible where there are no quality and health safety risks. So that's remained our goal, and that's why we have decided to resume the BioNTech vaccination from the 5th of April. The 5th of April is still a public holiday, so I'd like to thank all those who are working at the various vaccination centers and our civil service colleagues for making the necessary preparation during the holidays. And then from the 24th of March to the 4th of April, the BioNTech vaccination program was suspended. Appointments made for those days had to be cancelled. So now we need to make arrangements for new appointments. So we will be assigning a slot for a particular time and day for these cancelled appointments. and then we will be informing those who've been affected by SMS. They will know what slots they've been assigned at which center. For most of them, they will be going back to the same center they have chosen initially. But as I said, there are two centers. It is Dr. Sen Memorial Sports Center and the Education Services Center at Kowloon Tong. Both these centers are rather full. So if we are to make early appointments for these two centers, it may not be possible. There will be some delay. And for residents who are due for a second dose, I'm sure they want to take the second dose as soon as possible. That's why we will arrange for some of them to go to the Queen Elizabeth Stadium Center in Wan Chai and another new center in Ho Man Tin, because these two are new centers, so it will be easier to make appointments there. Of course, residents could take a look at the appointment made for them. If the time chosen or the venue chosen is not suitable for them, then starting from Tuesday, when the appointment system is open again, they could cancel the original appointment and make a new appointment. But so there is a choice for people, but of course we are trying to save them some hassle from making a new appointment on their own. So we're offering them a new appointment, but they can choose to take it or make another appointment on their own. So we want to proceed with the vaccination program in full speed because that is squarely the duty of the government.
For your question concerning the agreement, yes, we will be talking to Fosun, and we will look at our signed procurement agreement and the relevant conditions and terms. So we will follow up on the handling of the different badges, and also we will be looking at the relevant financial arrangements. So for the principle of the agreement, the relevant products have to be replaced without additional charges. Well, you asked about whether people between the age of 12 to 15 can be included in the vaccination program. For any manufacturers, if they have new data or new discoveries, we would ask them to provide such to us under our established mechanism. And I would like to ask the Director of Health to continue to answer the questions. For coronavirus vaccines, now there are more and more people in the world that are getting vaccinated. So these vaccines are efficient, and some manufacturers have tried to look into the possibility of relaxing the vaccination program so that people of different ages can also get the jabs. And also some manufacturers have made public the relevant research data, and they would also apply to the health authorities of different places so that the vaccines can be administered on different age groups. So if the applicant give us more data, then we will follow the approval procedures, and we will see whether the program can be relaxed. I'm from HK01. I have 3 questions. Can you tell us more about the midterm report? What's wrong with the vials? Is it about the metal ring? So after a vial is manufactured and if it's placed under ultra low temperature, then there will be problems. And you said that there's a very low risk when it comes to bacteria contamination. But how can you make sure that it is the case? Now there are 2 batches, 02 and 04, and how many doses have they taken back to carry out the investigations, and all the vials are free of problems? And I would also like to ask about the issue of responsibility. Now, is it a problem with machines, or is human error. How come the manufacturer didn't discover such a problem? So there was a plant that was problematic. So how about the other plant? And now Pasteur is going to produce our new batch. So can we ask that in the future all BioNTech vaccines should be manufactured by Pasteur? You say that 180,000 people will be affected, but you are only importing 300,000 doses. That would not be sufficient for the vaccine recipients. So how are you going to handle this problem? Let me answer the third question first. Now, from Monday onwards, the vaccination of BioNTech vaccines will resume, and tomorrow 300,000 doses will arrive. So we will look at the actual situation. We are in close liaison with the supplier, and if there is a need, they will provide us with extra doses. If we have further information, we will be telling you. Now, for the Germany BioNTech company, they have conducted a root cause analysis, and according to the midterm report, they say that this is related to the crimping process. This would affect the aluminium ring, which is at the top of the vial, and whether it is tight enough. They discovered that for the batches 102 and 104, some vials had problems. That is, the rings were not tight enough. So as a result, under ultra-low temperature, the plastic stopper would be harder, and the gas in the environment may seep in, and this is about carbon dioxide. So we have told them this, and they repeatedly tested the vials, and they discovered this problem. When the vaccines defrosted under the temperature of 2 to 8 degrees, the elasticity of the plastic stopper is restored. And they have another plant, Pasteur, for packaging, and they have repeatedly tested the vials and the relevant air pressure issues. So now they have no problems, and they are manufacturing a new batch for us. They have promised us that they will not be shipping vaccines to us which were manufactured at the plants that produced batches